Welcome everyone to our latest Assassin's Creed Shadows video. Today we're talking about things we don't want in Shadows. But first, if you could smash that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and tap that notification bell. It would mean a lot. It's a small thing, but it makes a big difference for the channel. Ready? Let's go. Too many map markers. In Shadows, the map should be helpful, but not overwhelming. Too many markers take away the fun of exploring. Some places should be a surprise for you to find on your own. Instead of showing every little thing, the map should give you just enough to keep you going. Exploring is better when there are things waiting for you to discover. So, the map in Shadows should be simpler, showing only important places rather than being filled with too many icons. Boring exploration. In Valhalla, exploring feels kind of boring. It's mainly about ticking off those map markers. The world is big, but there's not much to find that's exciting. It's like going through a checklist, and it doesn't give you that sense of adventure. Shadows needs to make exploring more fun. They should encourage players to look beyond the map markers and discover things on their own. That way, it feels more like an adventure. The game should give you cool stuff to find beyond just treasure chests. There should be secrets, surprises, and unexpected encounters to find. Plus, finding loot in chests all the time can get boring fast. So instead of just having everything in the chests, mix it up by putting loot in other places too. Spread them out in the game world in clever spots. This will encourage players to explore and pay attention to their surroundings. This way, collecting loot feels more immersive and enjoyable. Oversimplified parkour gameplay. Parkour in Assassin's Creed games used to be so much fun, but lately it's kind of been disappointing. Mirage made some improvements, but there are still some issues. The recent games don't give you the same sense of control and freedom as before. They get you from one spot to another, but that's pretty much it. The mechanics are too simple and streamlined. Not much has been released so far about the parkour gameplay in Shadows, but what little info we got suggests that Shadows will continue this trend. If so, we hope it at least builds on what Mirage did. We know it won't happen, but adding little things like a jump button could make a big difference. So for now, let's hope Shadow just improves and expands on Mirage's parkour mechanics to give players more control and depth. Okay, before we go any further talking about what we don't want to see in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we've got something a bit different that you might find cool. Especially if you love strategy games with awesome characters and intense battles. There's this game with over 800 champions from different mythologies and fantasy worlds, elves, orcs, even Norse gods, like Loki and Thor. Now, if you're into Norse mythology, you'll appreciate the new event, called the Asgard Divide. It's massive, and you can collect Norse champions, each with their own crazy abilities. Like Loki, he can cloak himself and dodge attacks, which is pretty clutch in tough situations. You can get Loki for free if you log in for 7 days before October 23rd. And if you keep logging in, there's even more to unlock. Thor and the others can be earned through in-game challenges. Thor can hit multiple enemies with his hammer, Odin can steal enemy buffs, and Freya protects her allies. There's even a special dungeon where you can fight Odin himself. If you love challenging battles, you'll really enjoy this event. It's going on now, so it's the perfect time to jump in and start collecting these champions. And if you like working with others, you can join our clan, Order of the Eagle, and take on the clan boss. Strategic and super fun. We like that the game's available on both mobile and PC. So if this sounds like your kind of game, go ahead and click the link in the description or scan the QR code. It's definitely worth checking out. And if you sign up through our link, you'll get some awesome bonuses, including 2 epic champions for free, Tagore now, and Tyrell after level 15. So yeah, check it out if you're interested. Now, back to our list of what we don't want to see in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Historical authenticity compromised. It's a little disappointing to see Assassin's Creed leaning more towards fantasy than historical authenticity. See, what made Assassin's Creed special to us was its commitment to historical authenticity. We mean the old games weren't perfect, but they had a level of authenticity that made them special. In Valhalla, it felt like we didn't care as much about keeping things authentic. While not everything in Valhalla was inauthentic, there was enough to detract from its portrayal of the setting. What we're hoping for is a return to a more grounded approach, where historical events, locations, and characters are depicted with respect and authenticity. It's understandable that they might want to add some stylistic flair, given that it's a video game. But we hope they do so with more respect for authenticity. Take the controversy about Yasuke being portrayed as a samurai, for example. While it would have been better if both protagonists were native, Yasuke is a real historical figure who was around during the game's time period. And there are records suggesting that he might have been a samurai. We're okay with his portrayal in Shadows because there's some historical basis there. And that kind of creative liberty works well for us as it's still grounded in some level of truth. What we don't want is for Shadows to lean too heavily into fantasy. We want a game that stays true to its historical setting and doesn't sacrifice authenticity for style. Filler arcs. Valhalla's main story felt too long and slow, with poorly structured storytelling and numerous filler arcs. These arcs, which didn't contribute much to the overall narrative, broke the game's pacing and made players feel disconnected. To address this, Shadows should make those unnecessary arcs optional side quests. By keeping the main story more focused, players will remain invested in the main plot and characters throughout the game. This will make the game more engaging and keep players hooked from start to finish. Forgettable characters. Weak characters can bring down even a great game. Both the main and side characters should feel more like real people, with depth and personality. In Valhalla, many characters weren't very memorable or well developed, especially the side ones. Also, Eivor isn't as good as previous protagonists like Ezio and Edward. Her story isn't that interesting, and she doesn't change much throughout the game. Shadows needs to make sure both protagonists undergo significant growth and have evolving relationships with other characters. Side characters should also be fun and interesting, with memorable personalities, meaningful connections with main characters, and good dialogue. Lack of focus on assassins. Valhalla didn't focus enough on the assassins. It didn't give enough attention to the whole fight between the assassins and the Templars, especially in the present day. What we want from Shadows is to bring the assassins back front and center, make them a big part of the game. We need to be right in the middle of the Assassin-Templar conflict. It's not just about having assassins in the game, we really need to explore their story, like really get into the whole assassins versus Templars thing, including the mysteries of the first civilization. Poor cutscene quality. The cutscenes in Assassin's Creed games need a serious upgrade. Right now, they're not very good. The animations are stiff, the camera angles are dull, making conversations boring to watch. Even older games like Brotherhood had better cutscenes. While Mirage and Valhalla had some good main story cutscenes, but not enough. The Basim and Eivor campfire scene in Valhalla shows what Ubisoft is capable of, but they need to include more scenes like that in Shadows. We understand that with the vast amount of dialogue in RPGs, it might not be practical to mocap everything, but the main story cutscenes should have a higher production value. Side dialogue scenes need a serious overhaul too. Characters in Valhalla feel robotic, and conversations quickly become dull. They should take notes from games like Cyberpunk 2077 and Horizon Forbidden West for better animations and camera work. Overall, in Shadows, we want better quality cutscenes, especially for main quests. Clipping issues. Clipping in Valhalla is a major issue. It's noticeable and distracting, especially when crouching. Parts of Eivor's robes intersect or pass through each other unnaturally, breaking immersion and looking sloppy. The cloak looks stiff and awkward, almost like a rug on Eivor's back. It's absurd for a game relying so much on cloaks. We want our protagonists to look cool, not glitchy and weird. Shadows needs to handle clipping better. All parts of robes should properly drape over with minimal issues. Developers should really focus on optimizing outfits to reduce clipping. Small details like this shouldn't be overlooked. From the footage released so far, the cloth physics in Shadows do seem better than Valhalla, but there are still some glitches. Hopefully these will be fixed before release, so there is little to no clipping in the game. Boring NPCs. Based on what we've seen so far, the NPCs in Shadows don't seem to be much of an improvement over those in Valhalla. But since that's just pre-release footage, there's still hope for improvements in the final version. Shadows really needs more lively and diverse NPCs in its open world. It's disappointing how NPCs in Valhalla feel like they're just there to fill space. They all look and act the same and their lines are so repetitive. Plus, they're only really active in towns and villages, not interacting much with the rest of the game world. Shadows needs to have more NPCs spread out across the world doing different things like traveling, hunting, and exploring. Also, NPCs should react realistically to the player's actions. But it's not just about NPCs. The wildlife needs to feel more alive too, and having some unique characters scattered around the world, even if they're not part of any specific quests, would make exploring feel way more exciting. That's the list of things we don't want in Shadows. Tell us what you don't want in the comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and click the bell for more content like this. Don't forget to check out Raid Shadow Legends through our link for some cool bonuses and 2 epic champions.